Welcome, and welcome to another episode of Consciousness Rising Zimbabwe and Beyond. Here is your host, Antonella Bargione, and today with me I have the pleasure of having Dr. Undine Whande from Cape Town. Undine, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Antonella. Nice to be with you.
Yes, welcome. And now we introduce our guest just now, but for the one of you who knows us for a while, is already a year that we have started this channel, and please go and check our talks that cover a various range of topics, and there is lots of healing and transformation covered. So please watch also our other talks. So today we have Dr. Undine Whande, and I'm so delighted because Undine is my teacher. And she's coming to Zimbabwe to hold a workshop to train people in family constellations and systemic constellation. And then we'll tell you a bit more about that. And before we start with Undine, I would like to introduce her. And I just take a presentation from the website because I really like it. And I even gonna read it in first person like she wrote it. I don't even talk about you. So I'm just read it as it is. I am a peace builder at heart. Most of my life I've worked in various conflict resolution and social justice initiatives in Southern Africa, in the search for what enables non-violence and grows peace. My journey has led me increasingly into the domain of personal transformation and leadership development. I now work as a coach and systemic constellations facilitator, accompanying individuals and organizations that seek to evolve their potential for healing and transformation. Welcome, Undine. Let us bask in what you do. And so let's start about this systemic constellation. Before we start, already the word constellation for me remind me star systems. It's a different series of points. So it's like a journey into this how of relationship. I mean, how all these things relate in the system. So tell us about systemic constellation and how it evolved after that.
Okay, thank you, Antonella. So I often start with the stars, actually, because that's I think it's such a good analogy, because we know the stars and the different constellations in the stars being sort of signifiers, but we also know that the constellation of the stars, they may shift a little, but they're also quite stable. I mean, you know, we do have the zodiac, and Scorpio isn't suddenly Leo. They stay also in a certain way quite steady. So the thinking for me that links to systems constellation is that there are ways in which we are embedded in orders in constellations that we are born into, for instance, a family with a mother and a father, and perhaps with siblings. And even if we don't know our mother or a father, even if we are a test tube baby, biologically, you know, we have a biological father and a biological mother. And this may change maybe in the future as there's more kind of working with genetics. But at the moment, this is a pretty stable assumption that every human being has a mother and a father, and that mother had a mother and a father, and that father had a mother and a father. And so you're already in a constellation there. You are born into a family constellation. It's your system, your family system. And the same way maybe in other spheres of life. So we are in a work constellation. Often we work in organizations. We have a position there. We have a role there. We live in a community, hopefully. And in there also we have roles. And there also we have certain ways in which we relate to other people. And some people take leadership roles, and some people take beautiful roles as elders. Some people take roles as inspirers of others. Some people push the boundaries. Other people maintain the boundaries. So there's all these roles, all this you could call, part of constellations. So what we have found is that observing these systems, there are certain dynamics at play. So if you take the family example of family constellations, the observation of doing lots and lots of this practice of family constellations has shown that there are certain dynamics that can really be read across time. So for instance, you could say you have a child who has a certain symptom, depression, maybe feels depressed, is not well, is finding it hard to relate. So in our Western world, most of the time in the understanding we have, we would say this child has a problem. And we would focus in on the individual child and we try and fix the problem somehow. Yeah, through counseling or medication, often, unfortunately, nowadays as well. Now, when we start with family constellation, we instantly would not see that child as isolated, with an isolated problem, but we would see that child embedded in the family system, and we would begin to ask questions about the child and how the child is doing, but also about the parents and how the parents are doing. And then we would even ask questions about the grandparents and maybe even about the great-grandparents. The learning is that in that constellation and how that system lived in its own time and across time, because the great-grandparents, grandparents are no longer with us perhaps, but they had certain experiences. And we have found in the constellation work that all the experiences matter that our family had before. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to stay for a little while with the family example because it's easier to illustrate, and then if you ask me, I'll take it to the other systems. But it's just to say that when we have a family constellation and that is in the service of this child, we may begin to find out that, okay, so maybe there was something in the grandparent generation where somebody was displaced, lost their land, maybe because of circumstances, maybe because of war or famine, or they had to leave their land. And now this part was very survivalist. They maybe went on a boat, they maybe went on another country, started a new life, etc. And this was just taken as a given. So we would ask questions. Perhaps we come to a place where we're feeling, oh, okay, let's see if we honor these grandparents and their pain and what they went through. Let's see what happens. So we say anything that was suppressed, anything that was excluded in a family, anything where it was maybe too difficult, trauma, and that maybe had to be just packaged away. And, many of the prior generations had to do that. They had to just accept their fate and move on. But then you might have someone in a later generation who exhibits symptoms, maybe of the grieving that couldn't happen. Or maybe, the sadness that is still in the family system, even though these ancestors have left the body in the physical form. But you will still find that sometimes a descendant takes on a dynamic to honor this, what happened before. Now, this is not a logical way we think in the West. Yeah, because we don't normally have a connection to our ancestors. We don't think in this way across time. We're just thinking, child has a problem, we need to help. So we stay with this very limited. And what we find in the constellation, I end there with this initial exploration, but we find that sometimes the child gets enormous relief once we have looked at what is some of the dynamics maybe in the previous generations that couldn't be expressed.
Yeah, so by acknowledging there is a release of energy trapped in the field. And I'm using the word field, but most of our listeners don't know about the field. Can you tell us a bit more about the field and how it works a bit more? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so the field,
I know
what
it's a
we
big
call
question.
yeah. So in the constellation work, there's something we find that we call the field or the knowing field. And the closest of scientific exploration of this we have found in the quantum physics world. For instance, of the work of Rupert Sheldrake, who speaks of morphogenetic fields. So he speaks of fields that people are connected through. Animals, for instance, also are connected. There are these examples, for instance, where the giraffes, even plants, the giraffes are starting to eat the leaves of certain plants. And suddenly all the other trees turn their leaves to be bitter. Yes. And there's this mysterious question, right? Yeah. How the other trees knew that the giraffes are coming to nibble the leaves. He also did experiments with dogs, which were in different continents, and who could actually connect to the same phenomenon. So we find in Family Constellation also be working with this field, with the sense of a field, because we can, sorry, there's a bit of an echo. But we can observe that, for instance, somebody who is already departed, who has gone to the realm of the ancestors, and maybe this has happened even in another country, you still can connect to this person, because in the family system, this person, whether in the body or out of the body, this person has what we call a rightful place. So we are part of something we call the orders of love. Yeah. So in a system, there is a flow of life energy. And it's in the family system, it's very clear the flow of life energy is traveling from the parents to the children to the grandchildren. But we also know from our own parents that it's not always so. Sometimes it's not so, right? Sometimes we're struggling because we're not receiving the love we wish for, or we would like a lot more from the parents, but the parents have their own history and they offer what they can. And sometimes it's not enough, or sometimes we feel it's not enough, or we realize later in life, oh, okay, I'm still hunting for this love of my mother, yeah, or for this love of my father. So then there is a way in which I can turn to my parents, even if they're no longer in life, and I can witness this dynamic. So the way this would happen practically in a constellation is that what we call the field manifests the moment we constellate with an intention. So if you're coming to me now and Antonella says, okay, so I have this sense that there is something unresolved and I keep on having a particular pattern or dynamic in my life, I would really like to explore this. Then we would have a conversation like we have now, and then we would set up an image. So this could be either with a workshop situation where people step into different places in your family system, and they will start embodying what is in that place. This could be as simple as your mother, your father, you and your siblings. That's very classic.
So they become, and you would have a person. They become representative.
Yeah, so what we call representatives. So somebody would step in, which is not role playing, because what the representative does is simply stepping into this place in the system and exploring through the physical body, the sensations, what is happening in that system. So this gives me as a facilitator a lot of information about what is going on in the system. So I can see maybe if somebody was excluded, or I can see if everybody is looking in one direction, or I can see if everybody is feeling strong, or if everybody's feeling weak, or some are feeling strong and some are feeling weak. Yeah. And so this gives me a lot of information to ask more questions of my client, who may initially be watching this. So you have an evolving picture, a moving picture of people who are standing in the constellation, who are not role-playing, who are simply in touch with their body sensations, because they're actually in the field of this client system, and they're getting the information that we need to see what is actually in the system that maybe wants to move or wants to heal. So we're looking for this cues for what in the system is ready to heal. We're not fixing and we're not forcing and we're not prescribing, and we don't have judgments or opinions about any of this going on. Rather, we witness, we observe, we inquire, we wait. And then when we feel we got to a place where, for instance, maybe my client will say, oh, you know, this grandmother, this great-grandmother, we don't even know her name. And everybody in the constellation, all the representatives, when they hear that, you know, they feel like they're so tired, they all want to go to sleep. This is, so you might have the phenomena telling you, it's actually, there's something here we might be able to witness and honor. So we're constantly also looking for what needs to be acknowledged, what needs to be honored. We're not wishing for things to be different. So very often when our client comes, of course they're coming because they want things to be different. But when we're working with the system, we are in deep reverence and deep acceptance of everybody's fate, everybody's story, the decisions everybody made there. Some decisions were very drastic. Yeah, somebody might have decided to kill another person. Very drastic decision. Now I have this in my ancestry. How do I work with this? But we have no judgment of this initially. That's not a contradiction with that morally, you know, this person might have done something wrong. But we are coming from a place where we are just looking at the systemic dynamics. We're not applying our ideas of how it should be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So by looking, again, I repeat, by looking, acknowledging, honoring with reverence what has happened in our lineage, is it our attitude that changes, or is the entire lineage that in a way the energy shifts?
It seems to be both. Yeah, it seems to be there's a shift inside me. Say if I'm the client and I'm watching my own constellation. Our experience is that there's a lot of shifts that are quite beyond language, that are expressed through the client's body. So we often look for cues in the client's body. For instance, can the client breathe better? Is there more breath? Is there a sense of the heart opening? Or is there a sense of the shoulders relaxing? Or if I saw, often I see also something here in the muscles of the jaw or the teeth, you know, slightly like, you know, I'm holding, or maybe at some point I just see my client go, and the jaw goes, you know, drop. Those are the little things I look for, because then I see that the system is receiving relief. Right. Because I have my client here said I might ask my person constellating to step into their own constellation now. So I only do that usually when I see the person is resourced, the person is at ease and calm. If the person is agitated by what they're seeing, I might just keep them at a bit of a distance. This is not easy what you're seeing. Just breathe, stay with it. But if you've got a bit of relief and release and you're calm, how would you like to step into your own constellation? So these are some of the moves that the facilitator guiding the constellation might then make, because when then the client at this moment in time can step into their own constellation after first witnessing, then some of those, what we call the healing movement, can become very evident to the client. So where before I watched my own representative, so Antonella would be watching Antonella's representative saying, perhaps to the mother, I honor you, something very simple. You see the representative already is feeling much better. You see the mother representative is smiling. You see there's a warmth. So then we look for this feeling where people are suddenly, you see, it's almost like the love starts to flow. Before something was frozen or people were feeling nauseous, and suddenly something starts to flow. So now I would like my client to step in and receive this. And it doesn't matter that this is, a representative rather than the actual mother, because the flow of this energy is real. It's from the system. It's not contrived. We're not making this up. So what we find then when people come back into their families, often, these are the famous stories, but yeah, when people come back and they say, you know, and you can't believe it, I came into the flat and the phone rang and it was my mother, and you know, and so because the people who are in the system, when any member of the system is prepared to look, so it's again this looking, non-fixing, honoring, but able to maybe see, robust enough, resilient enough to see what was before maybe too painful, or you know, hidden because we were ashamed as a family. So may say another example, you have a great uncle and you know this great uncle had to go into a mental asylum and died there, and nobody ever spoke of him again because people were ashamed at the time. This was yeah, but now you're realizing when this great uncle comes into the constellation that once the person finds a good place, the person who was excluded, the whole people in the constellation feel so much better. So a lot of the, you literally see in the bodies, the tension, you know, dropping away and people being able to turn towards one another. And so that those things then later will actually often manifest. I mean, it's not a recipe ever, but often something will manifest in this family afterwards, where there is just more ease. There's more relationship possible. There's more intimacy possible. There's more a sense of a free flow of love, because something has just a dynamic attention, an underlying feeling. Sometimes people say, I've had this all my life. All my life I've had this pressure, as if it's my fault. And I don't even know where it comes from. No one has ever told me anything is my fault, but I constantly have this feeling it's my fault. Where's this coming from? So that's the kind of phenomena when people maybe want to come to a constellation, particularly in with regards to family. You know, if I have a pattern that I've tried lots of things and I just can't figure out what's going on, it just doesn't feel like it's only mine. You know, I try many jobs, but I'm never stable. I'm never happy. I'm never steady. It can be patterns like that. I have many relationships, but I never ever yet got married because I never commit. Now it's dynamics like that. Often people come because of children, concerns about their children and wanting their children to be well. And the beauty of that work is that you always do your own work. Yes. You know, you never do someone else's work. But if you as a parent do your own work, it can actually really free the children to not necessarily have to carry on some of these dynamics, maybe coming through the family lineage.
Yeah. And what would you tell me about loyalties? Loyalties is something that in Family Constellation just the first time I got across the concept just freaked me out because I could see it in my own family system.
So loyalties are very interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm reading a book at the moment about wolves, and this describes very strongly the social ties of wolves and why they function so extremely well as a pack, and how the different social roles operate in the order of the pack. So I immediately have to think of this because there are loyalties in any social body. Yeah, because there are also rules, written and unwritten, in any social body. And then in the family system, there are also many rules that our societies think that they don't matter. Like we tell children, you can be anything, dream big, anything is possible. So we are no longer offering rites of passage where a young person is initiated into a particular good place, right? Because we find it limiting. We don't want, you know, to initiate a young woman to become a wife, you know, how you be a good wife, because it feels very, gender, you know, patriarchy and limiting and so on. But at the same time, we have certain loyalties in the system that if we simply think that anything goes, we're going to receive the insight that no, actually there are certain patterns that play out, and one of is the mutual loyalty of family members to one another. So there's a loyalty, of course, of parents to the children, because there's a responsibility to raise the children, to look after them. And not all parents can actually fulfill that. And if you can't, say you can't raise your child, you give your child for adoption, it has very strong consequences, because this is at the level of the soul. So at the level of the soul, the loyalty means that this impacts me all my life. And the other way around, the child is loyal to the parent because the parent gave life to the child.
Okay.
And this is a healthy loyalty. I owe my parents my life. This is something I can never repay because it's so big, yeah, at the level of the actual life force being passed through and culminating in me, the new being of two lineages. This is too big to ever repay. So what I do as a child, I honor my parents. But this is difficult if there is a parent with mental illness, a parent who is abusive. These things are not easy because there is, a reality in which, as human beings, we travel through these journeys of wounding and questing for healing. So this may mean that me as a child, loyal to my parent because they gave me life, but my parent being very wounded, I might start giving my life force to my parent, right, out of loyalty, yeah, because I love my parent loves me. But if the parent was really well, the parent would pass the life force forward to me. I then pass the life force forward to my children, yeah, or to my creative projects, or to what I love in life, my service to the community, the companies I create. Yeah, so I create beautiful things with the love of my parents and of my ancestors. But if the dynamic is such that there is trauma or deep wounding, then there can be something which is like a reversal of the life force. So where the order is so that the loyalty of the life of the child to the parent doesn't serve the child anymore. It actually damages the child. But the child is not aware of that. So if I have this dynamic as a child, I'm taking care of my wounded parent. Maybe I sacrifice having my own family. Maybe, I will not even be aware that that is what I'm doing at the soul level. But I feel at some point in my life that, I can't go on, or I'm, at some point in your life, you come to a place, because if you come to a constellation, something in your life is calling you there.
Yes.
And we believe it's a deeper calling of the soul. So if I can then let this go, this loyalty doesn't mean that I'm disloyal if I let my parent take responsibility for their own wounds and for their life. In fact, if I make myself bigger than my parent and I start taking responsibility for my parent out of loyalty, I weaken myself, but I also weaken my parent. And this happens all the time. So I'm just saying this, we all do this, to some degree, or yeah, same. So we all do this to some degree or another, because we, we love our parents. And at the same time, the parent is also relieved when you let the parent be big. Even if they are wounded, they are, they came before you. Yeah. They have their reasons why they live their life the way they did. So you come, I think someone asked me today, actually, but what is the actual outcome? Like, what are you getting? And I said, at some level, if I can speak of my own experience, there's a coming to a peaceful place inside myself with how it is in my family, how it was, the past, the things I can't change. But what I find is that my life force is available. And I have energy to create. I have love for my parents. I honor their story. I'm not feeling so caught up in what they did in their lives or didn't do. And I can pass my energy on to my children, to my work, to my projects. So there's a freedom suddenly, because I can feel what we call in constellation entanglement. Some of the old entanglements have actually been released, and that becomes one of the great gifts. So we may then come back for more constellations work.
for me, it's been also so far, and I can say that I'm almost a newbie. I'm not that newbie, but I'm a newbie. It's feeling the support behind me of who have come before. And that helps me to walk on the land, on earth, in a much more rooted and grounded way. And it's taking off a bit at the time, all those entanglements that you were talking before. So
that's really the
and this peace that is coming with that. It's like knowing my place, starting with the family, but also in the world now. It's like now coming together, really. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
And this is the peace and constellation work that's really honoring the African wisdom traditions, because that is where it comes from. The founder of constellations work really having learned and studied and received the wisdom from the Zulu people for 17 years. This is a big piece of the observations which led to the formation of constellations work, was really the African understanding of ancestry as, you know, standing behind us and as also being part of our lives. And so it feels to me that here in Southern Africa, this work of constellation is almost in its home place, because this is where it was birthed, though it became known in the West under that name of constellations, because it really merged some of the insights from other traditions and modalities, but it always rooted back into this understanding that that there is a possibility of relationship with the ancestors, and that there is a flow of life force. That time is cyclical. Time is not linear.
Yeah.
So we are part of big cycles of many who have come before us, all the way back to early man and early woman. And the gift that this is accessible, that life really operates across our limited understanding of chronos, chronological time.
Yeah. So, how did you get to know about Bert Hellinger, the creator of the Family Constellation? And how did you get into Family Constellation in the first place? What brought you there? If you want to share that.
Sure. Well, I think I can share two key strands. Okay. So one key strand was my own daughter. When she was about 4 or 5 years old, she started exhibiting behaviors that for me were very concerning. And they reminded me of dynamics from when I was a child that I went through witnessing with my siblings. And part of my history was that my sister died of anorexia when she was 15. So for me, when I watch some of this dynamic, even sentences spoken by a 4-year-old, I'm thinking, wait, this is very, very fear-inducing for me as a mother, to witness a pattern that I witnessed that in that time led to the loss of a sibling, now in the next generation. So I went looking around for people to say, what is this? What do you do? And somebody said, I think you need to do a family constellation. I said, what is that? This is now 2000, early maybe 2000s. And I landed in a family constellations workshop. I did 2 constellations in one weekend. some very, very strong insights and dynamics, after which my daughter never ever had a single symptom again like that, ever. The pattern was just gone. So I was like, how did this happen? This is like magic. What's going on, right? So, and for me, that I was very respectful. So first I wanted to explore this a lot more for many years. I would explore it until eventually deciding to train in it. But it was, a long journey before even deciding, I think I would really like to also be involved in offering this work, because I just felt a bit overawed and overwhelmed initially, like what are we actually doing here? But what was so effective, what I got from that early time, was just that when something is seen that previously could not be seen, it's almost like there was something in the family system, and we don't talk about details because we just don't in constellations, but something in the family system, unresolved from more than 100 years ago, was agitating, and the descendants were responding.
Wow.
Yeah. So you really have a moment there in my life where I saw this. So I didn't need scientific proof. I knew this was true. I didn't need a long explanation, even though I was raised in the Western tradition, that our ancestors matter, and what they experienced has an impact on us. I felt it in my body. I knew. So often that's why we say for people, if they're like, I can't figure this out, you talk a lot, but what is this all about? We just say, come and experience a constellation, because when we step into the field, it's almost like in our bodies, we know this is real. And then the sort of wooziness goes away, where sometimes, people saying, yeah, but you're saying it can like do all these things. And we're never saying it's a recipe for anything, or, you can't predict that it's going to heal X or Y or Z for you. We can just say from experience that where something was stuck before, there may be movement, or where something was frozen before, it may now become warm. Yeah, so it's more that. It's a very tentative, gentle claim that we can make for constellations.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for that. So you are coming this week and you're gonna do a training for the one who are doing the school. And but on Saturday, the 15th of May, there will be an open day in the afternoon from 1 to 5. So there will be an open workshop where people can try and get to know the work. Because yes, we have spoken probably for, I don't know, half an hour or so, but to do the experience is completely a different story. You can talk about it for hours, but then you just need to do the experience. So for those who are interested, I will put all the information below, and then you have to register with Paul, and there will be the email as well. Or you can also contact me personally, because I'll be there on Saturday afternoon as well. So
maybe just to say that I'm also very excited and delighted to co-facilitate with Lawrence Ngorora,
yes.
who is a Zimbabwean.
Yes.
And Lawrence is not here because he's already on the way to Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And he will be facilitating with me, and will also be with our training group in the room, which is very exciting because you'll be able to meet the pioneer training group in this work in Zimbabwe, who will soon also be offering this work from Zimbabweans to Zimbabweans.
Yes. And there is also an interview I did with Lawrence a while back. So you can watch that one too. And there's anything you would like to add?
Just that you are very welcome. I think we have to limit the numbers a little bit, but hopefully you get an opportunity to come and join us on Saturday, and we look forward to that.
Yes. And I'll put
at Kufunda.
Yes, at Kufunda Village, Learning Village. And I'll put also your details of your website. So if people want to work personally with you, they can. You can work online as well. and it works perfectly. And so everybody is happy.
Yes, so one-on-one sessions are possible, and they're also possible online. But Saturday is a rare opportunity to experience it live, which during this time feels very special. So thank you. Thanks, Antonella.
After all this lockdown period, yes.
Exactly.
It does. Undine, thank you so much for what you're doing, for the difference you're making. You're based in Cape Town, but I know that you travel, so you touch many different places as well, and many different people. So I see you soon. I'm so excited for that. And thank you to all our listeners. And who knows, maybe we see you on Saturday, next Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.